Hi, welcome back to our learning shorts. This is part 2 to our preparing for the holiday sales season, and this particular episode deals with robbery and break and enter. But before we talk about robbery and break and enter, there's been some fantastic information recently produced by the Association of Certified Fraud Investigators. And it really has to do with the current trends as it relates to fraud and how that's been impacted by the coronavirus. And so if you look at the card on the left here, you can see this says the top 5 fraud schemes currently observed due to the coronavirus. And what's really interesting about it is when we toggle on the ones that relate to our last learning short, which was cyber fraud and payment fraud. And you can see the current trends for coronavirus and frauds are cyber frauds right at the very top there. And there's been an overall increase of 83% of cyber fraud during this time. Payment fraud has increased 68% overall during the time of COVID. Now, what's really interesting, and we've been saying this all through the summer through the bulletins we sent out about cybercrime and being prepared for it, is the look forward. What happens as coronavirus and the type of sales that we do and the economic circumstances we have during the coronavirus, how that goes forward, and then when coronavirus is done as well, what the go forward is from that. And we can see the top 5 fraud schemes predicted to increase over the next 12 months due to coronavirus. Our cyber fraud again at the very top of the list, and what's climbed up on this is the payment frauds to 85% overall increase as well. And this is the expected go forward. So I know we've been talking about this a lot, and we're going to continue to talk about it because this is where we're going to get caught because it's new and we haven't really been exposed to it as much as some of the other typical loss events that we normally have, like thefts and frauds of the other nature, like a check fraud, that kind of thing, or equipment fraud or something like that, as well as the break and enters and robberies. And so I really wanted to put this out there because it just came up after we sent out that last learning short, and it was a really good way to break into the new learning short today. So moving forward, we'll talk about robbery because that's it's something that always is top of mind, and it impacts us as jewelers significantly. It's not the loss of the merchandise and the potential damage to the store as much as the trauma that a robbery can cause and the potential for harm. And so we really have to be particularly careful and mindful around these. And we've had some interesting robberies in this last year. Here's one from August in Calgary where individuals went into a store, and in this particular robbery they set off canisters of tear gas and used pepper spray. And that impacted not only the employees in the store, but also the people, the patrons and whatnot. It was a very traumatic event for a lot of people. But in this event, they also threatened staff with firearms before leaving the store with quite a significant quantity of jewelry. This is one event of many that happen every year, and we really need to have our guard up about how to protect ourselves against robbery. And so how can we do that? Well, they're particularly dangerous for store employees and patrons, and so as I always say, we have to play it safe with these. And there's a couple of things I'd like to talk about as it relates to loss prevention. And so the first thing is having a store that is very security minded. It looks safe to the criminal. Now, you have to be cognizant that when a criminal is going to do a robbery, or a pair of criminals are going to do a robbery, they're often in pairs, they're going to look at the store in advance to see if this is a target that they want to try and attack. And so how do we make the store look safe? Well, having a camera system that is prominently displayed is fantastic, and even the placards up that's saying you're on camera and that kind of stuff. So there's a big announcement that they're going to be captured on film if they come into your store, either as a regular customer or as somebody that's looking to do something illegal. Addressing customers. This is really important because, as I was mentioning, that the criminals will often case the store. It's almost part of their MO. They're going to go to the store first because they need to see, get an idea how many employees are in there, what the layout's like, that kind of stuff. They're going to plan the attack. And if they come into the store and they're not confronted, and what I mean by confronted, if they're not addressed as if they were a customer, then they see it as a really easier target. Somebody that comes into the store and they're approached by a clerk and they're asked what they'd like for jewelry or how they can be helped, how can they be assistance, and that happens immediately, and they've got people on them. They not only know that they're going to be addressed in the store all the time, even if they come in as a criminal. But in the front end, they've already been seen. They've already been talked to by somebody. And this can be a dissuasive practice in terms of them not wanting to come back to that store. Walk the floor. So the other thing is they're going to look at your store through the windows. They're going to be parked in vehicles across the street. They're going to check out your store. So walk the store, walk the store floor, and show people that you're not just sitting behind the counter. Clerks aren't when they're not busy. They're not just sitting on a chair. Walk the store, be active within the store. Show that people are there and out and about. And that they're checking on the store, they're checking on the merchandise, they're checking on the equipment, such as the camera systems and so on and so forth. And one thing that is particularly important, and this is more at the back end, if a robbery were to occur, is ensuring that you have a detailed inventory system. So if product is stolen through a robbery, you're able to recall that pretty easy by going to the inventory records. Now, the other thing I'd like to talk about is monitoring and reporting suspicious people, because I've just talked about people that might come into your store, that might be casing your store out. If they're suspicious in any nature, then report that. Tell police what you feel. Let them know that you think that there is somebody casing your store. Chances are they may know if somebody's been released on parole, or if they've got reports from other stores, not necessarily even jewelry stores, perhaps even banks, and they've got that information out there. Then they'll be able to marry up your description and your information to somebody that they already know. So it's really important that you report that. Limit your cash on hand and high-end items. Now, depending on the type of store that you have, high-end items might be the products that you carry. But if you don't need to carry a significant quantity of high-end items, then you can mitigate the potential for loss by only keeping in store what you need. Now, probably the most important part about all this is ensure that all employees are trained on everything that we talked about in the last few minutes. This is critical. They need to know what to do and what to expect in a robbery. And that's what takes us to this next slide. So what happens if you're robbed? Well, you want to remain calm and stay in control. This is so important, as we'll see as it relates to a few points at the end of this slide. Obey the robber's commands. They're going to be asking and telling you what to do. Just go with it. You want to play safe and have them finish the robbery and then leave the store. Don't argue or fight with the robber. That seems obvious, but it's not uncommon that we see this happen, and that can result in perilous results. Pay attention to descriptions, and so what I mean by that is you as you're going through the robbery, be cognizant of what the person's wearing. Because while we might have a camera system, or perhaps we don't have a camera system, even if we do, it doesn't capture the intimate details of somebody's jacket, maybe the type of weave that it is, or if there's an insignia on the jacket or something like that can't be made out in the camera. Maybe you can say that it says Kelly Ross machinery or something like that, but your camera might not say that, be able to show that. So it's really important to pay attention to that. hair color might not show, where they're starting to turn gray, or maybe they've got an earring stud and it doesn't show up, nose ring, that kind of thing. Maybe it just doesn't show up on camera. Things like accents, how they talk, words that they use, really important, because the police are going to be asking for that when it's all said and done. Also, pay attention to potential for evidence. So what I mean by that is where the criminal happens to touch a counter, you know that there's potential for fingerprints to be extracted off that point. Protect that when it's all done, and but understand where evidence could be collected. Now, once they've left your store, don't chase or follow them. Let them go. But pay attention to the travel direction and any vehicles they may get into. If you see they're getting into a vehicle, or if you can capture a description of it, potentially even a plate, without chasing or following them, spectacular. Get that. That would be very important information to get. And descriptions, again, of anybody else that might be associated to them. You might be able to see if they got into a vehicle, what the driver looks like, the getaway driver, that kind of thing. It's really important to be thinking about that stuff in advance, because when if the event happens, and hopefully none of you are ever exposed to an event like this, but if an event like this does happen, then you're prepared for it. So let's move now to break and enters. Another common event, more common than robberies, and but the potential for loss is significant, because they often attack the safe in the store. So here's an example of one that happened in Alberta again rather recently, and this was a jewelry store that was entered through a back door, and the truck you can see in the picture here actually had a ram affixed to it, and it would ram the back door, and the back door was highly fortified, but that big truck there with the ram was able to smash it in, and once inside they were able to take the safe and load it into the back of the truck before leaving the scene. So let's talk about some of the things that we might be able to mitigate losses due to break and enter. So one of the things that is important is, and this is right off the top, and it's rather obvious, is about leaving merchandise out and visible to the public. We should try and move that merchandise away and make sure that it's out of the public's view. Even if it's if you've got display cases, a lot of times they're covered up, but if you've got nothing in the display cases, you can leave the coverings off of them so that people can see that there's nothing in there, there's nothing to be stolen. The other thing is, don't leave merchandise out when you have excess safe storage. And you might have a really big safe, but the opening and closing procedures can be rather onerous in terms of moving the product in and out, and some lower end product might be left behind or on shelves. If you've got room in the safe, consider moving everything into the safe into the evenings and then moving it back out in the morning. It just reduces the opportunistic type of crime. Or if there's a planned attack, then it's not easy merchandise for anybody to get at. Ensure you have a great safe, or a really good safe. So some of the numbers here are TL15 or TL30 or something even better than that. Back a few years back, TL15 or TL30 was considered a really super good safe, but thieves' techniques and tools have changed, and some of the power tools that they have now that are even battery operated can cut through those safes very quick. So consult experts in that sell safes about what is the best ones that are available now, especially if you're looking at replacing one. And then consider the placement of that safe. So someplace that's not by a rear door or a back wall or a side wall that puts that safe up against a wall where there's another merchant on the other side of that wall, because that merchant can get broken into and then they might attack your safe through their wall. Ensure you have a good alarm system. It needs to be monitored with redundant electrical and transmission systems. And so the criminals nowadays, they're very smart. They understand the electrical circuitry and how the alarms work. And so they're cutting the electrical systems, or they're removing the ability for electrical transmission to the alarm system, and the ability to remove the ability for the alarm to actually transmit a signal. And as a function of that, look for ones that have redundant transmission systems and redundant electrical, because what's really handy is if the electrical goes out and you have a backup electrical, then you're if you can keep your cameras rolling and get data that way for police, and that's a spectacular piece of evidence that you can collect. But if the electrical is cut, then that's not necessarily going to happen. One of the things that's I'd also recommend is audible alarm systems. Sometimes they're not always used. Something to consider, because one of the last things that a criminal wants to hear is the loud sound of an alarm blasting in their ears while they're trying to either cut through a safe or steal merchandise. Things about that is that it's very distracting, and at the same time they can't hear if anybody's coming, in particular police sirens and so on and so forth. So audible alarms can be a very strong deterrent once they're activated. Consider building construction standards as well, especially if you're thinking about moving, or if you're just maybe upsizing your building or moving to a different place. Think about the walls and the roof of those places. That's where a lot of the criminals are getting in now, and rather than just smashing the glass at the front door. And if you can find a place that has significantly fortified walls and a roof, then that's obviously a better building. Notwithstanding, you have to think about the market area and those kind of things, but the building construction standard is important. And then consider the need for overstock. And this is really about balancing inventory with risk. If you don't need to carry a whole bunch of extra stuff, a bunch of extra diamonds in your inventory, then don't. Because if you lose that, then the loss is significant. Whereas you can lower that risk by carrying less inventory. So the other thing I want to just talk about as we move now into the Christmas and holiday seasons is about some of the security changes you might have. So you have new staff coming on. Ensure that they get security training and extra oversight. Super important. They're not going to know what the tricks are that the criminals are going to apply on them. Think about your displays. If you have new displays, make sure that they're locked down and locked up, and these don't cause a security issue. Think about rearrangement of displays. This sometimes happens at this time of year. Does the display allow better criminal access to the back or in behind counters, so on and so forth? Or does it occlude or change the camera view, make it poorer, for instance? And that leads us to camera functionality. And we also have to consider things like simple things like change in the season. If you have a camera that faces your door and you face south, and now the angle of the sun bounces off that wet sidewalk or the snow on the road, you might not get a really good image of that person coming in the store at 2 in the afternoon. So you have to consider how the change in season and even snow falling on the ground or wet, that kind of thing, changes how your cameras are going to function. Other things like holiday lights and decorations perhaps occlude the view as well. And so when you're putting the holidays lights up and decorations, have a look and just make sure that the camera is functioning well and that the view is as good as it can be. And if it's not, consider changing the angle or changing the view for that camera. So that takes us to the end of this learning short. So from the staff at Jewelers Vigilance Canada and the Canadian Jewelers Association, we wish that you enjoy a prosperous and safe holiday season, and I thank you for watching.